everybody. Welcome back to session 3 of day 1 of HENNGE Talks. I hope you all had a nice break. And for those of you who joined us the first time, hello, nice to meet you. My name is Sean. I work in the engineering talent acquisition team, and I will be hosting the final session of the day, tech conferences. Yay! So yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you for the live audience. Yes, I appreciate it. Just as a reminder, for those of you joining for the first time, HENNGE Talks is a session for us to share what it's like to work in a B2B cloud security company here in Japan, for you to get some insight on from professionals and experience in their field, as well as to hear from their personal experiences, as well as to apply how you can apply that to your personal and professional growth as well. For those of you who may have missed the first 2 sessions, the first session of the day was single sign-on hosted by John. Second session of the day was a next-gen company culture with Bagus and Iskander. And today, the final session of the day is to get more of your next tech conferences. So yeah, hopefully from this talk, you'll gain a better understanding of the importance of tech conferences and how to leverage this for your career and your personal growth. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers for the day, Jonas and Charles. Please introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Jonas. I'm a senior Python backend engineer here at HENNGE. And maybe more importantly for this session in particular, I'm also a member of the board of the PyCon JP Association, which is a nonprofit that makes sure that there's a Python conference in Japan every year. And I've spoken at, volunteered at, and attended almost 30 tech conferences throughout my career so far.
Yay! Yay! Thank you. Next, Charles.
My name is Charles Bond. This is my 3rd year at HENNGE. I'm a senior mobile engineer and been in the mobile space for about 10 years, do both Android and iOS at the moment. And I've attended mostly online conferences where I've both attended and spoken.
Yay! Yay! Thank you both for introducing yourselves. How are you both today?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Pretty good.
Really good. Yeah. Okay. Great. Now that we got the easy stuff out of the way. So yeah, today's topic is tech conferences. So yeah, we want to just kind of get some insight and hear what they have to say about attending tech conferences. As you have heard, they are both quite experienced and at attending as well as speaking at these conferences. So before we get started, Jonas, can you give us like a brief overview of what a conference is?
Well, a conference can be many things, of course, but especially what we're talking about today is tech conferences. That's conferences or events where people will present talks about specific topics, and usually a tech conference will have a specific focus. So the ones I'm most familiar with are called PyCon, so they're about the Python programming language. I've also attended Django cons, which are about the Django web framework, and then there's different conferences for each different tech subsection of tech, basically.
So for each specific field, it's like a different conference that probably match.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Charles, could you share a little bit how conferences differ from like conventions and like things like this that are kind of similar, like large gatherings, but a little bit, Well,
sure. Tech conferences tend to be more specifically focused on tech talks and particularly technology. And a lot of times they have a particular theme that they chosen for that year. And as opposed to a lot of maybe generic conferences, it's often possible to speak at one of these conferences if you provide a kind of apply and provide in advance what your topic is going to be. And a lot of them have an option, especially recently, for being either online or offline. And sometimes you can do one of either for the particular event, or sometimes it's all online.
I see. Thank you. Yeah. So I think right now with all the, I don't think I have to state again the current situation, right? I think everybody's aware. A lot more conferences have been online, more so than in person recently. So it's great to have both of you here with the different experiences in attending. So yeah, maybe we can start with like getting into the main topic as well. So maybe before we get started though, like how do you pick which conference to go to, guys? Because I know like your job kind of does apply to a lot of different fields, right? It's not just, you're not just in Python, not just in one thing. So how would you pick, I guess for you, if you attend next one, how would you pick the next one?
Well, for me, it's since I've been doing mostly Python backend engineering for the last decade plus, it's quite easy for me. I just choose PyCon, though I do sometimes attend other conferences as well that on different topics. But so how would you choose the conference to attend? Is, well, what's the area that interests you? What is the technology that interests you? and then find one nearby that is conveniently nearby or at a place that you want to go to anyway. So you have a good excuse for like
get some free travel in.
Exactly.
Company sponsored travel. Yeah.
Ideally, yes.
Sponsored by HENNGE. Yes, of course. Charles, what about for remote conferences? Is it a little bit different on the searching process?
So when you're looking for remote conferences, a lot of times you can just use Google to find what's out there. But what you need to pay more attention to is, of course, the topic, as we discussed before, but also the time zone matters a bit. Because if you're applying for one that's a particular different part of the globe and you think you can attend, and you get ready for the conferences you want to look at, the talks you want to see, and it turns out it's in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and you're having trouble staying awake through the rest of the conference. So do pay attention to the time zone, but also pay attention to which company is sponsoring it, because a lot of times that can have an effect on what kind of talks might be there and maybe how many people are going to show up. And if it's a long running conference, it's more likely to be bigger and have more people attending and more interesting topics.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think some of you, some of the audience members also are attending from different parts of the world. Thank you so much for making your time, by the way. Yeah, we know Japan time is not the most convenient for most people, unless you are in the Asian regions. But yeah, as Charles mentioned, right, the time zone definitely is a big part of it. And I think this is why the remote ones also have kind of like recordings after, which we will as well. But yeah, recordings after to make sure that everybody can kind of participate in some form.
Yeah.
Awesome. So maybe we can get into the next topic of why people should consider attending conferences. I think that's a really big part that I think it does sound like a really nice thing to do, but maybe more specifically, maybe Jonas, if you can share some of the benefits of attending a conference.
Sure. I mean, the most basic benefit is it's fun, usually, or at least I consider it fun. You get to meet a lot of other members in the community. Especially in tech, it's quite common that we know a lot of people, but only online through like GitHub or Twitter or whatever it may be.
Right.
So we have a lot of people we know or consider friends that we've never actually met in person. And so tech conferences can be a good place to do so. But beyond it being fun, it's also a very good place to just get a pulse of what's going on in your part of the tech world. What are the hot topics right now, and to just learn in general of like, sometimes people will share things they've tried and that failed, and that can be very useful, or somebody is announcing a new cool library or new cool thing, and then you can learn about it firsthand.
Anything that, Charles?
So even in the online space, there's a lot of networking opportunities. Depending on the event, there might be some sort of hallway kind of situation where there's maybe a Zoom sub-channel where you get to participate and talk with people between the talks.
Right.
But even if just at the talk itself, there's the opportunity to listen to it live, which is a little bit of different experience from watching it taped later, and also potentially to ask questions of the host and of the speaker, and maybe get some information that might not have been present if you're just watching it afterward.
Right. Yeah. Also, for those of you watching, please submit your questions if you have any for these tech conference speakers as well in the Q&A section. I believe other Sean is directing you guys. So yeah, if you have any questions, please submit them. We'll be happy to answer them later on. All right, so we come back a little bit. Yeah, so speaking of like kind of fun experiences, did you have any interesting talks that you guys attended, or something interesting that happened during a conference that you could share with us?
As I mentioned in the beginning, I've been to quite a few conferences, so it's a bit hard to pick just one thing. But I guess the thing that I think about the most, or is most memorable for me, is less sort of talks that I hear, but the people that give them, or the people that I meet at the conferences. Like at PyCon Indonesia, I met a young high school kid who was bored at school, but unlike me, who was also bored at school, but then thought I would just skip school, he built an app to connect teachers who are willing to give extra lessons to students who want to learn more.
Wow.
And he asked me for advice in the career, and I was just like, no, you've got it all figured out way better than me. Keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, that's like.
And so yeah, these kind of chance encounters of people, like, how would I meet such a person otherwise? Those are the things that really stick with me.
Yeah. What about you, Charles? Anything like interesting?
So at last year's Droid Kaigi, which is Japan's Android conference in the fall, there was an interesting talk that instead of actually being focused on giving a subject matter and going through all the points of it, the host of the talk, or the speaker, actually ran through accessibility. And the way the speaker did this is they had everyone pull out their phones and walk everyone through setting up the accessibility functions for their phone, and then test their own apps live.
Oh my goodness.
And see how well your app is performing with accessibility, which was a very different way of doing things, but also kind of an experience that you would definitely not get just from watching something recorded. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to run the speech, and also a very different kind of format that is something that I was able to experience.
Was this at a remote conference?
This was remote, yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So remotely, people are just kind of doing it on their own.
Yes, but there were some, I think there might have been some live participation, but it was mostly remote. But I was remote, so I couldn't see in the room. But yeah, it was definitely a kind of a different way of doing it, and I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty innovative to kind of add that sort of tactile interaction, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, for a virtual event, right? I think that really does add a lot of value to it.
Sure, yes, I think so too.
Yeah, just following up on the remote conference a little bit. Charles, could you share a little bit about maybe what you think makes the remote conference different, or what kind of value, maybe the extra value there is, and maybe some value that's not there?
So one of the big differences between a remote conference and being there in person is obviously the location. So when you're there in person, you can talk to people, shake hands, exchange business cards if you still have business cards, or just, do the cell phone exchange thing. And there's not really there so much in the online conferences, but depending on the online conference, they might have, sub chat rooms, or actually just a physical chat room where you're typing in on the keyboard, maybe you're on video. But also it has the ability to say, if you're tired, you could just take a break because you're in the house. You could go walk down to the kitchen and get a snack, or lay down on the couch if you're tired. But so there's that benefit without having to go back to your hotel room.
And, you can watch the whole thing in your pajamas if you want to from your bed.
That too, and perhaps you could even, a lot of them you can watch it later. A lot of conferences you can watch it later, but you could perhaps just pause it for a little bit. And if it's streaming in such a way where you could resume it, you could just literally come back in, or you could skip forward depending on what you want to see. So yeah, there's options online that you don't have in person, and of course options in person that you simply don't have online.
Yeah, definitely it's a different experience, but yeah, it does sound like we are kind of slowly evolving in how we're conducting these online conferences as well. So hopefully it'll kind of improve as we go along. All right, nice. So maybe we can go to the next topic of the session, which is more about speaking at conferences. Since both of you have mentioned that you have some experience speaking and giving presentations, if Jonas, you can give some idea of why is it good to speak at a conference, I guess.
Well, I might risk repeating myself here, but again, I think it's fun. It's definitely one reason, but beyond that, of course, there's many other reasons. One is that you just might have an interesting topic that you want to share with the world, or you might have built something cool that you want to share with the world. So that's a very good venue to do so. And then it's also very good to just build your brand. Especially if you go to conferences repeatedly and speak, sometimes maybe all the time, people will notice and people will remember. And so, for example, the next time you look for a job, that can be useful. Even if you might put it on your CV, you might not, but people might still be like, I've heard this name before. And stuff like this can be very helpful. If 50 people apply and one person's name you've heard before, that's going to give you a huge boost.
Right, definitely.
Could also be useful if you're looking for new colleagues to join your company, because they saw your speech, maybe they were interested in what you were talking about, and might be interested in your company. And that can be difficult this day and age to get new people sometimes. So it's another angle to go by. But also, I mean, just getting practice in doing speeches in general, the more you do it, the better you are at it, and it's helpful for your career in general, just to be good at that kind of thing.
Yeah, public speaking is like a pretty good skill to have. And this is many conferences are just your colleagues, basically, even if they're not in the same company. So it's a friendly place to get your feedback with that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So all this, public speaking, what we're doing right now, it's actually, exactly. Pretty much, yeah. But it is really good opportunity to kind of get yourself out there. Just like you said, make a brand for yourself, make you recognizable, especially in the sea of talents that's across the world. Yeah. Do you have any tips, or maybe you can walk us through the procedure, basically, how to apply for us as a speaker? I believe there's different types of conferences, different methods of applying things. So maybe Jonas, if you can share a little bit for the ones you've attended.
Yeah, so it really depends on the conference. A lot of conferences will, well, there's, broadly speaking, the two extremes of conferences are the ones where all the speakers are invited. So to speak at those conferences, you already need to be a well-known person, and you need to be known by the people organizing it. So that's not really what we're talking about here, I guess, today. The other one is that has open registration, where anybody can submit a proposal. Hey, I want to talk about X. And then different conferences have different ways of selecting talks, but it's usually a mix between the staff that run it and maybe some external people who will try to vote on it or something like that. And so if you want to give a talk at one of those, well, the most important thing to do is check the rules that they have for how to submit. They will have a timetable. You have to submit by X date and so on, and you have to submit it like in this format. And sounds simple, but it's a very important part. And then you submit it and hopefully get accepted. And if you submit it, the important thing is keep in mind what conference you're applying to. If you're applying for a Android conference and you want to talk about machine learning in Python, it's probably not going to work out well. And yeah, so then if you apply, then hopefully you get accepted. And then the most important thing after that is practice.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you want to be well versed when you get up on that stage.
Charles, anything to add?
So I agree with all those points, but I think it's also important to mention that if you want to increase your chances of getting through, try to think of what look at the topic they picked. Try to pick something that's within that topic, but hopefully not something that's going to have maybe 500 other people who had submitted the same talk. Most talks also allow you to submit multiple topics, and they do have rules usually limiting you to a specific amount, and there might even be a penalty if you submit too many. So be careful about that, but find out how many you're allowed to submit. Think of your best 3 ideas that fit in the topic, and try to make them as varied as possible, because the more different your ideas are, the more likely one might get selected.
Yeah, at PyCon Japan, where I volunteer each year, we actually publicized our, like, how we will evaluate your talk, and like does it fit the conference? Is it about Python? And then like, is it novel or interesting, and so on. And so if the conference you're applying to gives you their reviewing guidelines, you can use those to help you write a better proposal as well.
Make use of the tools you have.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, so guys, write that down. If you guys are thinking about speaking at a conference, make sure you check the rules and the requirements for the talk. Check the topic and make sure your topic aligns. Don't make it too what's the word I'm looking for? Not stale. What is it? Generic, basic, maybe.
Also, don't make it too wide, too broad. Try to be focused. It's a lot easier to accept a talk if it's about something specific rather than the whole world of everything, because then it's not clear what it's actually going to happen.
Yeah, especially if it stands out, right? It makes it much more, eye-catching, right? For the screeners as well. Yeah, so yeah, please, you guys, write that down. If you guys are interested in speaking at a conference, be sure to take notes, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the talks. Do you guys have any other tips that maybe you want to share before?
Sure. Like in some, what we try to do sometimes, or what some smaller communities sometimes will offer, is like a workshop or something like that. To, if you think about you're planning to submit a talk, but you've maybe even never done it before, right? Check if any of your local user groups or something can help you with that. And so again, PyCon Japan, we know that PyLadies Tokyo run sessions where people in their community can help each other review their proposal before they submit it, and things like that. And so if that's something that exists in your community, make use of it. Like it's there. People are trying to help each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that sounds really cool though. That they'll kind of like check your presentation for you, make sure everything's like going well, like all like structured properly. And,
yeah.
Oh, really nice. Anything else?
I mean, there's also opportunities generally in any given area for just regular meetups where you can come together with groups of other developers and just give a regular speech without any real judgment going on. Just give you more of a kind of a practice to kind of work your way into it. But just in general for conferences, I also like to say it's important to schedule and pick what things you want to look at in order, and maybe set up a calendar, because you might regret it if the one thing you wanted to see at this conference ended up being the one that has in that one your lunch break or
Right.
was overlapping
Right.
another one. And also just remembering the dates to apply for things, because it's easy to lose track of when the apply date was for something.
Mm.
Yeah, and to something you mentioned earlier, make sure you know the time zone that
Yes.
those deadlines are in.
Yes.
Right.
We're trying more and more, at least in the Python world, to use the anywhere on Earth time zone,
Yeah.
which is not a real thing, but it means as long as it's that date on anywhere on the planet, it's fine. And then it translates to something. But what it means is if you're applying from Japan or if you're applying from Europe or America, it doesn't matter. You just have to look at the date that it shows in your local time zone. Because it's really frustrating if it says like you have to submit it by 9 p.m. on that day in Japan. And then you think, oh, it's on that day at 9 p.m.
Ooh.
But then it's passed because
Right.
time zones. So yeah, as you said before with the online conferences, with that as well, if there's like deadlines or something, make sure you check the time zone.
Plus, it's not just time zone, but a lot of times some areas have daylight savings with the time zone, and other areas don't. And what may have been the appropriate time zone 6 months ago when you were thinking about it, suddenly now on the day of, it's actually a different hour, and you have to be careful about that too.
Yeah.
And well, I guess, and the general suggestion there would be like, don't wait till the last second to do it.
There's that too.
But that's easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, I think most of us are procrastinators probably. So yeah, let's just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's definitely a good point, right? I like the anywhere on the world thing though, but to me that just makes it seem like there's an extra 24 hours.
That's kind of the risk, right? Yeah. You have to remember that that's a convenience for you. Just look at your local date. Don't overthink it that, oh, it's still Tuesday in what's the last country? I don't know. In that Pacific island country where it's still, don't overthink it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you for that nice transition into going back a little bit to maybe what we can do at a conference, more so than just speaking. Definitely speaking is a big part of the conference experience, as you mentioned. Good way to kind of increase your brand, get experience teaching a topic as well, because teaching is the best way of learning, at least I found. But yeah, we kind of want to go back into more like best practices. Yeah, you mentioned about like scheduling which sessions you want to go to. Do you have any other advice for conference attendees of maybe what they need to think about when attending or how to make the most out of their experience there?
If you're going in person, make sure to bring a way to take notes, whether it be some sort of note-taking app on your phone or actual pad of paper. You want to be able to write something down when something interesting happens, because something else interesting is going to happen after that and you'll forget the first one.
Right.
Yeah, with that, I would actually suggest you use pen and paper, even though, yes, we're all techies, I guess. And that is simply because if you're on your phone or you're on your laptop, you run the risk of wanting to switch to another app or something and check something else. And you might be focusing more on your device rather than what's actually happening in front of you. And so that can be like a little, I don't know if that's a real tip, but like close your laptop, leave your phone on the table while watching the presentations.
Yes, good tips.
And when you're at the conference, have some container to put stuff in that you're receiving, like whether it be contact information or notepads. Your hands are going to get too full, and you could have a whole bunch of bags that they hand out for free, but you really want something that you can put the things in that you really want to pay attention to.
And yet, on the topic of stuff to bring a water bottle.
Yes.
Like a refillable water bottle, because conferences will generally try to provide food and drinks to some extent to their attendees, but that's, yeah, it can be hit or miss, and you just want to make sure you have a way to stay hydrated, like on a in-person conference, of course, especially if it's in a like hotter climate.
Even at home for virtual ones, you probably
stay hydrated. At home,
yes.
Also stay hydrated, absolutely.
Yeah, always, yeah, always. But yeah, I think, yeah, whenever I go to like these conventions, I always end up with like a bag inside a bag, with a bag inside, with a folder in another bag. So,
and then with all those things in there, the one thing that you were really interested in is now buried deep down there, and you have to go dig through all that to find it, when you could have just pulled it out, put it in a little pouch and zip shut.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so very practical tips. Maybe what about like when you meet kind of new people? Is there any like, I don't know if etiquette's the right word, but.
So a couple of years ago, I don't know, probably somebody else came up with it, but somebody started explaining to me the Pac-Man rule.
The what?
The Pac-Man rule. So you know Pac-Man the game, where he goes like wah, 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 wah. And so if you think of a circle, if it's a Pac-Man, there's an opening. So if there's 3 or 4 people of you talking in a group, stand in a way that there's an opening so that somebody else who might want to join can easily join. Of course, if you have like an intimate conversation between the four of you and you don't want anybody else to join, you don't do it. But if you're like, oh, we're just talking about the session we just saw, think of Pac-Man, leave some room, and then if you join that group, make sure that everything repositions itself so there's the opening again and somebody else could join. And that's just a nice way. And that's especially advice to like people who've gone to many conferences already. Like that's kind of, they should maybe think of it as their job to make it easier for newcomers to enjoy it, because somebody who's like, maybe they go alone to the conference and it's their first time, that can be very intimidating. So if you're an experienced conference attendee, like try to do something, make it more welcoming to newcomers.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit kind of like a tight-knit group of people.
It can be that.
It does seem like that, but I feel like a lot of people in the community are really open to, right? Getting new connections, meeting new people, like you guys have mentioned, like getting your name out there. So yeah, I never really thought about that, but that's a very good and practical thing to use. Not even just for conferences, just in general. If you're out, even at like a bar or something, if you want to meet new people, just like open a space. Somebody will join it. Maybe not somebody you like, but you know. Charles, do you have anything else?
I guess if we're talking about trying to meet new people, trying to pick a level of language discourse that's not too technical, but not too maybe a little bit rough, or you're just meeting random new people. Some people might get put off by certain things. So just don't regulate yourself too much, but also, don't be talking at such a level where someone would feel intimidated just to come in and say hi.
Basically, be considerate.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Within reason.
Yeah.
This isn't, you're not at school. So
the nice thing is if let's say you're a bit shyer and not that great at talking to new people, the nice thing at being at a tech conference is you already have a topic to talk about because you're all there. You can just talk about, as I said, the previous session. So it's actually a nice way to, like, if you're a bit on the shyer side, to still make new friends like that.
Yeah, I think it's a really, like you said, a lot of new people want to kind of try to reach out, but it can be very intimidating, right?
Yeah.
So people being considered, like both of you, I think it's really, really nice for the community as well. Yeah, I actually want to ask Charles a little bit more, since you have some more virtual experience. How is the meeting like new people? How has that been like?
it really depends on the conference. Some of the conferences have the talks lined up one right after another, another, so there's no breaks, and you just basically choose not to go to one of the talks. And some of those conferences have, like I said, the communications in a chat room. So you could just talk to people in a chat room, maybe meet people that way if you used to kind of the Discord or Slack way of doing things. But some of them actually have kind of those little hangout rooms on purpose to try and virtually create the hallway experience.
Right.
And it's kind of it's mixed with both of it. Sometimes you can get a good conversation going, especially if you're in a space where everyone's together. But if you're kind of mixed together, that provides opportunities to meet new people. But maybe that conversation you had 15 minutes to an hour ago, you wanted to continue. Now you're with new random people, and so you have to do a new one. But I mean, I think there can be opportunities there too. It's just a matter of how you want to use them.
Have you actually, because my experience meeting people online is it's very nice on the day, and it's like, oh, it's great, and then after that you kind of just don't really maintain connection very long. How has your experience been like?
Yeah, it's especially with the online, it can be very thin. It's possible, but it's not set up to readily make that happen.
Right.
Even in person, you can meet somebody, shake hands, and just never see them again. But definitely the online experience is a little bit more thin in that sort of sense. There's not a whole lot of we're going to be good friends right away. It's certainly possible to overcome that, though, if you have a really good connection.
Yeah, and as you guys said, the consistency, right? It's like, oh, I've recognized that name again and again and again, and it's like you're already friends, even though you're not friends. You know what I mean? So
well, and in that event, there's also the ability to just meet people year after year if you keep going to conferences, regardless of the format.
Right.
And sometimes you may find that you've been to a conference and one of your colleagues from another previous job is just suddenly out there and says hi or sends you a message. So you never know when you're going to run into someone you already know anyway, even in the online experience.
True. Hey, Jonas, have you met anybody interesting, maybe? Since we're on the topic of meeting people, you've been in person once, any like high profile?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you call high profile. Definitely within the Python community, I've met the Guido van Rossum who created Python,
Goodness. Wow.
which was like, initially I was like, oh, that's him. And I was like, yeah, but like, of course he's at the Python conference and he's just a normal guy. So it's like, you can just go up and say, hi, thanks for your work. And like that. And then there's like some other, like, I don't know if I should call them celebrities within the Python communities, but like, yeah, some people who like more experienced Python engineers would have heard of either their work or that person. Like, yeah, you can meet them, and the nice thing is most of them are just normal people. You can go up to talk to them.
Just normal development type people. Yeah. What about Charles? Anything like any interesting people, high profile?
I wouldn't say high profile. It's harder online for sure.
Right.
But you know, you get to meet the kind of people that you might not meet at a conference with maybe a little bit higher frequency, because international travel is harder. So when you're online, it's more likely you'll be getting a mix of people from different countries just popping in and saying hi. So you might be able to meet somebody from another corner of the world that just couldn't have been at the in-person conference, and you could have a chance to talk and find out things that you might not have known otherwise.
Yeah, that's definitely like, that's basically one of the biggest benefits of online conferences, right? You're no longer restricted by travel,
right?
Or the time it would take, and the cost, of course, it would take to travel.
No more airline tickets, no more visas, no more having to worry at the last minute if you're not going to be able to get in.
Yeah, so that's definitely really nice, because yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to travel to many places in the world for conferences and meet people like that. But it's, of course, also really nice to be able to do that from the comfort of your own home, just like meet people from the other side of the planet. And yeah.
And no tests, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, especially right now, right? The travel is just not, it's not it right now. So
yeah.
But I definitely think the in-person one it has its definitely charm, right?
It does,
yeah. The after parties, not parties, but like after event gatherings where you can kind of speak more freely as well, right? So
yeah, maybe, I mean, we talked a bit before about what can you do at a conference, and that's actually one thing I would also recommend is the conference will have a schedule and it will end at a certain time, but especially if it's a multi-day conference, that end time is not the end of the day. People will organize things. Sometimes sponsors will organize like a free dinner for some people, or people will just in groups go like, hey, let's grab dinner together. And that's also like a fantastic way to meet new people or make a closer connection to the people you met throughout the day. If you do that, just don't overdo it.
Yeah.
If it's a multi-day conference, pace yourself. And especially if you're going to speak at a conference, maybe slow down a bit until you've given your talk. Then you can.
And also, you could pick your end time in a lot of senses. It depends on how you're currently setting up the conference, if you're going as your representative of your company or not. But if you're free to pick which talks you go to and don't go to, and whether you have to go to the whole length or not, you might choose a different end time and go hang out with some folks just to deepen connections in that way.
For the for the virtual ones, is there any like after event? Have you been invited to anything like that before, or?
I haven't, but I could certainly imagine there being an after event chat room. I mean, it's certainly not hard to do, but it's not like you can go down to the local pub together or into a nice restaurant. It's more like, well, we're all here, so either I go make dinner in the kitchen or I go downstairs and buy something outside, or maybe order in some food and then have my virtual party with the people online. I mean, I think we've all experienced something like that in the last couple of years.
But yeah, for PyCon JP last year, we did try to do like an online party kind of event. And so we had one of our sponsors is in the food business, and they would, for all the people who were joining from Japan, we would send a little food box and drinks to them for that time. So, I mean, yeah, then we would have like, I think we had Zoom breakout rooms or something like that, where people would like, so like 4 or 5 people to a room and try to do it like that. But yeah, so some conferences, they do try something, but it's, again, it very much depends on how they run it.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of companies, especially virtual things, are kind of trying to figure out what their pace is, what their lane is, how much they want to promote the in-person, online type balance. Yeah, I imagine the virtual one's just like, here's my Discord, just join my server for a little bit
Yeah.
or something like this.
I mean, you could have your own chat server of various different kinds, and also people will exchange social media profiles, you know, whichever particular social media you happen to be using at the time, without naming specific ones. But I mean, another thing just occurred to me right now, and it's, if you're at a situation where you're meeting with people, there's just the normal hangout stuff, but maybe you might want to, as something, just bring kind of a small game that is a good bonding experience kind of game, something where you have something you're doing together in this time you're spending together outside of the conference.
Right.
Don't make it like a video game or something with sitting, but you know, something with cards. But that's something that could also be an interesting way to kind of push that bonding experience a little further after hours.
Yeah, definitely. Like all the people, it's really important, right? Everybody's really motivated. I mean, everybody's going because they like that topic, they're passionate about it. So maybe some people look more shy, as you guys mentioned, but definitely everybody is open. So yeah, guys, remember to try to make as many friends, interactions as much as possible at these events. Don't be too shy. Everybody is very open, most cases, to meet new people and to expand their horizons as well. So yeah, I think we are approaching. Ooh, okay. I think we can maybe move on to the Q&A section. We have a good amount of questions coming in. Thank you. So yeah, we can just move along and start sharing the questions. So one from the anonymous attendee. Again, we're back for the third session in a row. Thank you so much, Mr. Anonymous. How much does it cost to attend a tech conference like PyCon and others? Good question. Important.
I think we were just
depends. Earlier today we had that discussion, and it really depends on, is it online, is it offline, and then where is it, and so on. So for example, PyCon Japan, the normal ticket price is 12,000 yen, which is about, what is it, $85 US dollars. But then if you go to, let's say, PyCon in the US, it starts at around $400.
Oh my goodness.
But that's for an event that's like 2 or 3 times as long with about 2 or 3 times as many people.
Right.
So that's kind of the thing. And then online conferences, I think they start at like 0.
Some of them are free. Yeah. And it really depends because especially now they're switching into more hybrid mode, a lot of conferences. And so 2 mobile conferences that are going on in Japan in the next couple of months. One of them had a list price of 5,000 yen for in-person attendance and 2,500 yen for online attendance.
Oh.
Another one that I'm aware of, and I'm not naming specific ones, 1,500 yen, so somewhere between 150 and 120 US dollars for full attendance in person. And then we had different discounts depending on how early you signed up, and online attendance for that one was free. Now, what you mean by free for online depends on the place. Some of the conferences by online attendance, they have a different range for, you can be there in person and ask questions, and that costs money, or you're just sitting there and watching a YouTube stream of it, and that might be the free version.
I see.
But it really depends on the conferences for what levels they have set up.
Yeah. And you mentioned an important thing, and that's the discounts. Many conferences will have early bird discounts, meaning it's cheaper if you buy earlier. But then a lot of conferences will also have student discounts, where student prices are massively reduced. So if you are a student, you have a student card, you can use that price cheaper. And a lot of conferences will also have some sort of financial aid program where
scholarships.
If for whatever reason you cannot afford to travel to the conference, you cannot afford the whole ticket, you can explain your situation, and then they might waive the ticket price for you or cover part of your travel costs or all of it.
Oh, wow.
And things like that. That's especially a thing that I know is or not especially, but I know at most Python conferences, that's a thing, because we try really hard to make it accessible to everybody. And not everybody is fortunate enough to already have a good paying job and attend it like that.
Right. And then you don't want to like stop. That shouldn't stop you from learning, meeting people, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's super cool. I didn't know about all the aid they have. So yeah, any students out there, please consider Python conference. It'll be, hopefully you can get some aid. And there's apparently student discounts. So please make use of those.
And I would say check for any conference you're interested in attending to see if there's a student discount or a student scholarship program.
Yeah.
for that. Thank you for the good question. Yeah, didn't cover that. Thank you for that. John Gall, you sound familiar. Maybe you're an expert at SSO, maybe. I don't know. Oh no. Tech team, can I have the question back, please? Not tech team. I'll skip that question. Sorry, it's okay. Another question from John. As virtual conferences become more popular, how much should one worry about things like mic quality, video quality, etc.? I guess this is more from like attending from at home.
Or speaking at home, I guess.
Speaking
from home or virtually.
My experience with that is that generally they have a pretty strict requirement. A lot of any conferences that are caring about this is they'll have a strict requirement about what kind of mic and PC you have to have available, and a lot of those might offer a recording session for you to come in and have your speech recorded if you don't have those particular facilities with you. But yeah, definitely the mic quality and camera quality is important if you were to present remotely. As far as if you're worried about the conference itself having quality, I would say if they have a previous year, look at the previous year and you'll get an idea of what it'll be like.
Although, especially if, well, they will hopefully get better year after year.
Yes,
because
hopefully.
Especially like 2 years ago when everybody was forced online, a lot of conferences were at the last minute trying to figure it out. So it might have been quite, not quite at the standards that everybody would have liked.
Sure.
But as you said, if you're speaking, as you said, like, yeah, make sure that you have a good mic and so on. And I think the microphone is way more important than a camera. If you don't even need a camera technically. You could do it without a video feed of yourself, but people are going to listen to you. So having a good microphone and make sure that you're in a place where there's not a lot of background noise, I think is really helpful.
The most important thing though is to have a stable internet connection.
Yeah.
Because no matter how clear your voice and video is, if you're cutting out, it's not going to be watchable. So
which is why some conferences they don't really do it live stream.
Yes.
They will have you record it beforehand. So that you can send the video, and then at least the internet connection is not going to be a problem.
Right.
And maybe the biggest thing is like, please don't use your laptop's like built-in microphone. Not going to be pleasant.
It's a pro conference tip.
I don't know how pro that is.
It's probably fine for the hangout sessions, but for an actual speech,
as an attendee, do not worry about that. But if you're actually going to give a talk for 30 minutes,
it's worth investing to make yourself look better.
And hopefully it's not that big of an investment.
Right.
You don't have to buy a like high quality, like musician like level $1,000 microphone, but just something that you can plug into your computer so it's not the same as your actual computer.
Yeah, definitely. Really important to have proper setup as well. Maybe some companies, you can do it from your company, something like this, where they have like equipment available. I'm sure the companies would be happy to aid you in participating in these conferences, getting their name out there, getting your name out there, increasing your value as well. All right, so another question, the earlier one that I lost somehow. How general should the presentations be? So I think it's kind of going off a little bit more of what you mentioned of keeping it like not too niche, but also accessible, kind of that balance. Yeah, being accessible to public versus being interesting to like pros in the field.
Sorry, I don't think that I don't think when you're at a tech conference, I don't think it's necessarily important to keep it accessible to the general public because you're already at a tech conference.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to have it be so niche that nobody at the conference knows what you're talking about. But if you are trying to aim for such a broad audience that you're like trying to explain all of the terminology of your field, you're probably going way too broad.
Right.
I think it's important that if you're submitting your proposal, you make it clear who your target audience is. Do they need to know already, like, is this going to be a super deep, super niche, like we're going right down to the thing, and you're going to need to have some prior experience on that topic to understand it? Or is this, you don't need to know anything, I will explain it. And as long as you clearly explain what you're going to do, I think that's the important part, because then the people selecting the talks can also choose which ones they want to include, like to get a good balance of, we want to have like 40% beginner talks, 40% like medium talks, and like maybe 20% like just hardcore stuff, so that the audience can also pick and choose and get a variety of levels. Yeah.
Is that?
I mean, that's a good guideline to go by, but if you're wanting to get picked, maybe trying to, like a lot of times you have 3 choices, maybe trying to vary among those of maybe a beginner and an intermediate and advanced of whatever you feel comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a particular version of this level, this amount of breadth or this amount of depth in a topic will absolutely get you picked. It really depends on what they're looking for.
Yeah. And then with the whole getting picked, it's also just, it depends on who else submits what, which you cannot control.
Right.
So even if you submitted an amazing talk proposal that people would want to hear, sometimes because especially on-site conferences have a limited time schedule that they can do, we have to, I don't even want to say reject, we have to not accept talks that we would have loved to have on the schedule, but just can't because of the time constraints. So we gave some tips, but at the end of the day, that's also, as you said, like we cannot tell you exactly the formula to get it picked, because at the end of the day, it's just, you might be unlucky and 2 other people submitted the same or a similar topic, and just by like a coin flip or something, they picked the other person.
And if your talk doesn't get accepted, you could always just, you could write an article or maybe make your own YouTube video or whatever video platform you're using and put it up yourself. And that might help you get picked next time if you've already put out videos on a topic.
And then here's maybe the super pro tip with that is, especially for in-person conferences, you can submit the same talk to multiple conferences.
True.
That's what most people who like go to a lot of conferences do. Nobody can write 20 talks in a year. But that also means you have a higher chance of being accepted. If you submit the same thing to 5 places, 5 times the chances.
Assuming you made it decently well.
That's just, I'm gonna assume that, yes.
Yeah, so like diversify your portfolio in a way. You can choose like different topics, right? Like kind of different ranges of like skill level, niche level as well. Probably have one general one maybe kind of crazy one that you want to talk about. Probably increase your chances as well. Submit to different conferences and just be consistent, because as Jonas and Charles both mentioned, there's a limited amount of space and there's a lot of people who I'm assuming would like to share about what they're talking about, who are passionate about what they're doing. So just because you don't get picked doesn't mean that you were rejected. You were just not accepted. Unfortunately.
It's really not. We really try, like reject is too strong, I think.
You just weren't accepted this time.
This time. There we go.
I think this year we had like almost 200 submissions for PyCon Japan, but only time for like 50.
Oh goodness.
And you can just do the math, right?
A lot, yes.
And a very small number of those were really things that we were like, we'd rather not have this. Most of those were like, if we had the time, we would happily invite those people.
Unfortunate, but so thank you guys for sharing those. Okay, next question from Camille. Are there conferences that you've never attended but have always wanted to attend or interested in attending? Maybe we can start with Charles.
I've never been to Google's big conferences.
Google, nice. Is there one coming up anytime soon?
They recently had one, so maybe next year.
Maybe next year,
I'm trying to think. Like I've done, like again, I'm a Python engineer, so I'm mostly sticking to Python conferences, and I've done 2 big ones, PyCon US and EuroPython. I really can't think.
Just done it all.
There must be. I mean, there are some that I want to go to just for whatever personal reasons or something, but there isn't like a big one that I really want to, I think.
What about one of the personal ones, just to give Camille a satisfying answer?
Sure. Like I like to go, like use the going to conferences abroad as a kind of excuse to also visit those places. So I want to go, like I've been to PyCon Colombia in South America. So going to another South American one would be really cool, although it's extremely far, which is a bit tiring.
Especially from Japan.
Yeah, especially from Japan. And then just some more of the regional ones in Southeast Asia. I've been to like Thailand and Indonesia ones and some others, and those were really good. So I'd love to go more of those.
Yeah, definitely. Companies also, like I think our company, we're very fortunate that they do support us in attending these conferences. So we do have a lot of opportunities. I don't think I've attended one. I know my team has attended some marketing summits, things like this. I know, like, you guys have also attended as well. I think we're also even sponsoring PyCon in Japan coming up.
Yes, thank
right?
you.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys see our logo, just maybe take a pic with it and say hi. Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on. Next question from Timo. Do you regularly attend conferences paying with your private, so your personal expense? Charles, how about you?
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on if it happens to work out that it's going to be what the company wants to cover. But if you want to go on your own time, there's nothing wrong with going to a conference that you're just interested in going and seeing. And it really depends on how much you're willing to commit to.
Right.
If you think it's interesting enough for this amount of money, this amount of time, then nothing wrong with dropping a little bit of money on that.
How about you, Jonas?
Like I usually attend the more regional, like in Japan, we have the big PyCon Japan, but then there's also some small regional ones. And so PyCon Kyushu started a couple of years ago, and they have it in various places in the Kyushu area in the south of Japan. And those I pay myself because they're small, they're regional. It's hard to justify to the company why I have to go there. And so I'm just like, yeah, no, that's for me. And then it's also slightly different. Like if I go for myself, then I'm there as a private person as opposed to like they're working.
Right. Yeah, you get a different amount of freedom as well, right? That's
Yes, you could definitely pick your end time when you want, when you're paying for the conference.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like if you're going with the company, you're also like a representative of the company, so you have to be a certain level of professionalism.
Definitely,
yeah. All right, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then another question we have: are there any talks that have stayed with you even long after the conference? So maybe like some with like, I don't know, I think you still remember to this day. You can start doing this time.
Yes, but I forgot the name of the person who gave it because I'm really bad with names. There's a few. There's actually one that is similar to what you mentioned with the accessibility at Droid Kaigi, where at DjangoCon Europe 2012, I believe it was Jessica McKellar gave a keynote on accessibility where she basically made us close our eyes and everything, and then read the homepage of, so this was a Django conference, so it was the homepage of the Django project as it is done through a screen reader. And none of us had any idea, like, could understand what was being said or what was happening. And part of that is because we weren't used to it. And part of that is because the website at that point was not optimized for that. The cool thing about that is that got fixed fairly quickly afterwards, in part, at least, thanks to that great presentation.
How about you, Charles? Anything?
I think so far, the biggest one that stands out is the reason I brought it up is the accessibility one. But I think that at any conference, there's just talks that kind of let you know about what's going on. And I've definitely had a lot of in the recent conferences, heard a lot of kind of different opinions on the new APIs coming out. And those kind of stick with me, like giving me the impression of, oh, okay, so a lot of people are having trouble with this, or a lot of people like this new feature. And that's kind of, that's more like, rather than the specific speech, those kind of themes stick with me a lot.
Right, like the voices of real users, pretty much.
Real developers talking about this or that and the new technology that's come out.
Yeah, I feel like that's especially true because of the virtual thing, right? You're kind of in your own space, in your own world of like, not opinions, but like how you view things is kind of, it stays consistent because you're at home for very long. So it's nice to get like new input as well. And
if you're sitting there going from speech to speech to speech, sometimes they can kind of melt it. So this is another thing, going back to the tips, do take breaks.
Yes.
Because the speech will be more fresh in your head if you haven't just sandwiched it with another one.
Right. Yeah. Good tips. All right. And then I think we have time for maybe a couple more. Do you usually attend conferences alone? I'm afraid that I don't feel comfortable with myself. That's a tough one. I don't know if I would be able to go along, but
I've done both. Like I've gone to conferences on my own, and again, as I alluded to before, yes, it's scary, especially if it's a really large conference. But like, I believe I've gone to PyCon US the first time alone.
Oh wow!
And that was like 3,500 people, so that was kind of scary. But again, the nice thing is you already have something in common with everybody there. Right? And so it's not that hard to find other people to hang out with. And by like halfway through day one, I was no longer alone there. If you want to think about it as. And so it's definitely something you can do. And again, speaking for the Python world mostly here, I hope other conferences do it as well. Many conferences will also try to provide some sort of session or some sort of event for first-time attendees or attendees who are alone, kind of like a mixer, so that then they can have other people that they can attend the conference with.
I would say another angle on that is that online conferences, it's much less of a problem of feeling overwhelmed by the people around you. And maybe you could also make friends there to go to the next live conference, because having connections, if you really want to go with somebody, that's one way to make them. Also, maybe involving some of your coworkers, if you can get one of your coworkers to go with you. But there is definitely a benefit to going to a live conference alone, because you're more likely to make connections. People are more likely to approach somebody who's by themselves than a random group of people. And I think that's kind of important.
And you're more free to.
Yes, yes, you're more free to meet. And when you're with somebody, it's not that you're necessarily intimidating, but you're talking to them. And so you seem less free to talk to.
Right.
So it's kind of a give and take on that. You know, there's benefits to going with somebody. You definitely have somebody to have lunch or dinner with. But going alone also provides you with opportunities you might not have otherwise.
Yeah, if you can kind of overcome that little, oh, I'm going alone feeling, then there's definitely a lot of benefits, right? Like you said, you can meet new people quite easily.
Sure.
And yeah, if you're alone, I feel like people are kind of more inclined to be like, are you okay?
Yeah, but
you want to join our circle?
If you're not ready for that, yeah, definitely online is a good place to start. But also, like we said, just taking somebody with you who's a coworker or a friend, or even a previous online conference that you might have met somebody and convince that person to go with you, and it'll be your chance to meet up. So
awesome. Would you like to add anything before we wrap up for the day, unfortunately?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I'm also on the PyCon JP board, so I would be amiss to not say, please join PyCon Japan, October 14 to October 16, Tokyo, Japan. Nice. Tickets are on sale.
Use coupon code. No, never. No.
Sorry, no coupon code.
Any final rules?
I'll probably be at Droid Kaigi this year in person. So if you want to meet me up in Tokyo, I'll say hi to there. Other than that, just good luck getting out and enjoying conferences.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, guys, if you guys are attending PyCon JP or Droid Kaigi, which is like a Droid conference.
Yeah, it's an Android conference in Tokyo.
Please, if you see them, say hi and all this good stuff. But yeah. So just a wrap for the day. Hopefully you guys are able to kind of get an idea of why tech conferences are important for, not just your personal growth, but also for your professional career, and a lot of benefits that you can get from speaking and attending these conferences, both live and virtually. They both have, big pros and cons, different parts that are attractive, but you can definitely find one that's right for you and attend and gain as much as you can from it. Yeah, awesome. And yeah, sadly, this is the last session of the first day of HENNGE Talks. Thank you all who have been joining us from the beginning. Thank you to those who just joined us. Thank you everybody in general for joining us today. If any of you missed the first two sessions, just to reiterate again, we had a single sign-on session and then one about company culture and this tech conference session here. Tomorrow, we will also have three sessions for you guys. First one will be UI UX related. So you'll get some insight into how two of our members kind of work and a real life example of how they can, how they actually interact and how they solve problems that they actually had. Second session today will be related to front end. So you'll hear from four of our front end members speaking about how they solved the problem, a real problem that they had in their team and how they implemented this new technology to solve it. And finally, enter the new world of work. So this will be more on workation, new working style, remote working, all this. We have a special guest, Ogura-san, our CEO, CTO, joining us. So we can get some insights into the higher ups and what they think and the direction of the company going forward. So yeah, again, thank you everybody who stuck with us to the end. Hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Oh, and on the next slide, please. Thank you. There should be a QR code for you guys to respond for our survey afterwards. And please check our website for any more information on us, and our recruit page for those of you interested in possibly working with us. So yeah, again, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye.